Hello, my name is Rich Chesler. I'll be your instructor for this course. A little background about myself. I've been a special agent criminal investigator with the National Marine Fisheries Service, also known as NOAA's Office of Law Enforcement, for the past 15 years. I've worked criminal and civil investigations involving living marine resources laws, such as the Marine Mammal Protection Act, Endangered Species Act, Madison-Stevens Fisheries Conservation and Management Act, as well as the Lacey Act. I primarily worked in Florida, but I've also had investigations that have taken me to other countries. I now currently serve as the National Training Coordinator for NOAA Office of Law Enforcement at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia. Prior to coming to NOAA, I was a Deputy U.S. Marshal with the U.S. Marshal Service working at the Superior Court for the District of Columbia. My duties there included court support, transportation of prisoners, and sometimes working with criminal investigative deputies on fugitive investigations. Prior to working for the Marshal Service, I was a U.S. Park Police officer in Washington, D.C. and Maryland. I functioned as a city patrol officer, essentially, conducting patrols of National Park Service property, also highway patrol on the Baltimore-Washington Parkway. It's the closest job in the federal government to being a city police officer. Prior to going to work as a park police officer, I was with the U.S. Coast Guard as an enlisted member. I served in Alaska, where I conducted fisheries enforcement on a Coast Guard cutter. I also served on a law enforcement detachment that sent me to all around the world on board U.S. and allied naval vessels to enforce counter-drug laws and UN sanction enforcement. I have a Master's of Science in Criminal Justice from the University of Central Florida. It's my pleasure to be involved with this class, and I look forward to interacting with all of you and answering any questions you may have. Feel free to contact me via email. Thank you. To provide an overview for criminal justice in the age of globalization, we have the following course description. This course will introduce students to the United States criminal justice system in the age of globalization. You'll develop a general understanding of the criminal justice system's response to crime and how the processes of globalization is changing. It's an introductory overview of local, state, and federal law enforcement, judicial and corrections agencies, and the criminal justice system processes. Our objectives are to demonstrate knowledge about the components of the criminal justice system and the criminal justice process, and that will be our first module. Building on that, we'll talk about crime and its relationship to law. Our third module, government structure and criminal justice, we'll talk about how government structure affects criminal justice system. Next, we'll talk about globalization and its role in the criminal justice system. And then finally, we'll talk about criminal justice agents, their role in dealing with environmental issues or problems.